Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's eClaims webinar. And now I hope everyone can hear me. We ask you to please keep your phone lines muted as we will be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Please enter your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Use the drop-down to send your questions to the panelists. Please make sure when you send your questions that you select panelists. Otherwise, we won't all see them and you may not get an answer right away. You can also hover over the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and click on chat. We will answer as many of your questions as we can, but if you have questions that we don't get to today or think of something after the session, we will be providing you with resources at the end of the presentation. Today, we will be covering 3.0 and 3.1 news, table changes, 3.1 login items, change log items, and 3.0 to 3.1 cutover dates. In April, we began using a new cause code of 83 for pandemic for COVID-19. We have a new edit that will be effective October 1st, 2020 for date of injury, which states date of injury year must be on or after 2019 if nature of injury is COVID-19 and or cause of injury is pandemic. This is the last edit change for 3.0. You can now view the August 18th webinar and recording on the eClaims presentation page. The August 18th webinar included topics that covered eClaims news for both 3.0 and 3.1. I will now pass it over to Mary Beth Goodsell to review the IAIABC table changes.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be going over all of the IABC table changes that the Systems Committee published, and the summaries are listed on the IABC change log worksheet for each table, dated 9/2/2020. We transferred over all of the IABC summaries of changes to each of our table worksheets, listing the following numbers. The event table, the Systems Committee labeled it as EVT 23. They made a change to the SHROI periodic table for the activity qualifier of IL, and we updated our event table for that. They also updated the element requirement table, and we'll be going through our eClaims change log detailing all of those changes labeled as ERT 182 to 200, and then also the edit matrix labeled as EM 127 and 128. ERT 199 that the Systems Committee labeled is for IRR 902, and that's modifying the data population rules for the accident site data elements. There's no need for us to implement that right away. So we're going to wait for the IAIABC Claims EDI Implementation Guide to be published on 1/1/21, and then we will publish them with our New York tables after our first release 3.1 implementation, because it's going to change our element requirement conditions that we currently have set for the FROIO 04 AU-UR. They changed the data population rules so that it's no longer, if you give the accident site narrative, you don't have to give the full accident site, and vice versa. So we'll just wait until later in 2021 to publish that. Now we're going to go through our eClaims change log that was just published. a couple hours ago on our website, listing items 29 through 26. Items 25 through 28 will be published soon. Those are the 3 reference documents that we use, the Summary of Change Document 3.0 to 3.1, and the Change 02 handout, and also the implementation guide. Since they're not IABC table changes and we couldn't get them published right away, we wanted to get these table changes out to you as soon as possible so you could make coding changes, but the reference documents will follow just to confirm all of the table changes we're making. These are the first IABC changes that we've made to our tables, and we're not going to be including a worksheet on each table for the change logs. The Systems Committee gave jurisdictions the option to either put a tab on each of the tables to notify trading partners of the changes made to the table, or have one eClaims change log that will document all the table changes. And that's what we were doing in 3.0 before Systems Committee came up with this new way of listing table changes for 3.1. So we've taken the option to continue with our one-place eClaims change log, and we will post all table changes and reference documents. We will reference IRR numbers and IABC change log numbers on our eClaims change log. So if you look at the change log that was published today, you will see that we did reference IRRs and the IABC Systems Committee change log numbers. Our eClaims change log number 30 references that we are changing the Freud element requirement table to state that the accident injury description narrative is changing from MC 274 to MC, and what that means is it just confirms that we don't allow deletes for this data element. So that's really more of a clerical type change, and we are going to be changing that on our Change 02 handout, which will be updated to reflect the modification. eClaims change log number 33 also references the Freud conditional requirement change we're making, and this one goes along with the one I just mentioned, and this is the number counter. So again, we remove this entire condition off of the Freud conditional requirement since we don't allow deletes to accident injury description narratives. The Freud conditional requirement tab was updated, very similar. The suspension narrative counter was removed because we don't allow deletes. This is listed under item 49 on our eClaims change log. eClaims change log item number 42 also references that we changed the reportable change code for delete from H to N for suspension narrative. So again, because we don't allow deletes on suspension narrative, we changed that from H to N and removed the condition for the counter. Okay, net to zero. So this change has to do with the net to zero that is being discussed by the IABC Claims EDI Committee Work Group for modification of the way that the rules are written in the standard. New York will be implementing the net to zero concept because we have a regulation modification for 300.22 F2 that will state the report is due within 18 days of resuming payments for disability becoming due in the event that the payments are not being made due to a credit owed to the carrier. We also listed an event for Shroy RB on our event table, referencing that the net to zero could apply when there's a credit on a schedule loss of use. So if you paid a schedule loss of use and then the claimant goes out of work again, you're telling us that you've accepted liability for the lost time, but you're not paying the claimant. So that's what results in the net to zero. So within the rules of the IABC rules, we are going to make sure that we don't require a payment segment data element. So that's what this relaxed condition does. So we are relaxing the payment segment data elements on the AP, IP, RB, and PY when the reduced benefit amount code is Z net to zero. And this is summarized in our eClaims change log number 48. eClaims change log number 53 is also related to net to zero, and this is also related to the payment segment. This edit is relaxed based on the number counter, number of payments, and on A, we're adding it to include Z for the IAIABC, and then on edit B, we are relaxing it to add the Z on the PY. We already had it for reduced benefit amount code of S for claims settled under another date of accident, and N for no money settlement, but now we're adding it also if you have net to zero on a PY, no payment segment is required. eClaims change log item number 54 is another relaxed population restriction, and this one is on the number of benefits. And we already have the relaxed edit for no benefit segment if it's Z, but now what we did is we modified the rule. So we changed the and to or when it's referencing recovery code 880 for the CB, and this is based on the section 4 rules. And then eClaims change log number 55 is also on number of benefits, and we relaxed the population restriction. Also on the recovery code, changing it from and to or, and this one is for the AP, CA, EPER, IP, RB, and SX. Again, trying to make sure that you won't have to send us a benefit segment if it's net to zero. We are also announcing that the IRR that we requested to add a new data element for benefit change reason code, as I've previously announced, was approved by the IABC, has now been assigned a data element. So it's DN 439, and it is going to be in the record layout R22, position 634. The Claims Systems Committee announced it on their change log, edit matrix 127, and added values A, B, C, D, and E with all of the definitions that you see there on the screen that was approved in the IRR and will be posted in the Section 6 Data Dictionary on 1/1/2021. And Greg Lutz has informed me that he does have it already posted out there on the IABC website in the supplement. We do plan on making this a mandatory data element on the CA and the CB. And then for the SHROI 02, it should be SHROI 02, not FROI 02, that's a typo on the slide. It should be add N and remove N. So we would reject those reportable change codes. We're not going to allow an add or a remove, but we will allow an update. So that's a Y. So that should be a SHROI 02 because this is a SHROI only data element. Okay, at this point, I am going to turn it back over to Patty.
eClaims change log item number 34. This element requirement was changed to 0 as no benefit segment is due on the SHROI AC. Change log item number 36. Since the AC doesn't report benefit data, the DMs listed here have been changed to X to be excluded on the element requirement table. Item 37 on the change log. Since the correction was made to exclude benefits on the AC, the DNs related to benefit data to dependent data have also been changed to X to be excluded on the AC. Number 38 on the eClaims change log, suspension codes and suspension narratives are set to X per the standard. So suspension effective date should be X instead of if applicable or available. eClaims change log item number 41. The non-consecutive period code has been changed to X to be excluded since benefit data is not reported on the SROI AC. Change log item number 39. MTC SROI SU processing rules indicate it may report suspension information. However, the SROI element requirement table marks the suspension DNs as X to be excluded. It appears the element requirement table should be amended to apply if applicable or available instead of X on MTCs 0193, 0233, 0418, and 0419 to limit states in applying AAAE, AR, or NA. We are making these DNs we are making DN 0193 and DN 0418 AR. DN 0233 is AA, and we're changing DN 0419 to NA. Item 40 on the eClaims change log, SROI MTC SU processing rules indicate it will report the most recent denial information. However, the SROI element requirement table limits denial data to DN 0196, denial rescission date on the SROI SU. We are making DN 0197 AA and DN 0198 and 0199 AR. Item 43 on the change log, the implementation guide for the IAIABC indicates DN 0293 is reportable on both the SROI SU and the SROI UR. eClaims change log item number 44. The implementation guide indicates that both the partial denial code and the partial denial effective date are reportable on the SROI SU and the SROI UR. And now I'm going to turn this over to Michael Hunter to review the next set of slides.
Thank you, Patty. For eClaims change log number 45, the element requirement table, specifically the SROI element requirements, was updated for DN 436 due to a clerical error. It was updated from noting it was an alphanumeric character to a date character. For eClaims change log number 32, both the FROI and SROI conditional requirements were updated, as well as the valid values, population restrictions, and the FROI and SROI sequencing tables. This was a clerical error for the FROI and SROI UR. We added that this is actually the upon request grandfathered, since we're using our existing UR process from release 3.0. For eClaims change log number 47, the SROI conditional requirements were updated on the element requirement table for DN 84 for permanent impairment percentage. This is a relaxed edit. We actually relaxed the condition for DN84, so this data element is not required if the BTC is 530, which is the lump sum permanent partial. For eClaims change log number 50, the SHROI conditional requirements were updated on the element requirement table for DN403, initial return to work type code, and DN406, latest return to work type code. We again relaxed the condition and we modified the condition from and reduced earnings greater than 0 to or reduced earnings greater than 0. For eClaims change log number 51, we modified the population restrictions for DN36 part of body injured code. We relaxed the population restriction, removing 91 body systems and multiple body systems from population restriction 36064B. Now reads that if the number of body parts is not 10, then part of body injured code cannot be either 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or 90, since they need to submit as many specific body parts as possible before using those multiple codes. So you're now able to use 91 without having to reach 10 body parts. For eClaims change log number 52, we again modify the population restriction, in this case for DN134, calculated weekly compensation amount. We removed the population restriction error for 059 for DN134 that only allowed it to change on certain MTCs. That population restriction allowed the DN134 to be changed only on the SHROI O2, AP, CACB, IP, PYRB, PD, and SU. It can now be changed on any SHROI. Another population restriction change, this one for eClaims change log number 56, and this is for DN401, jurisdiction claim number related. We relaxed the edit to clarify this change only impacts 401 and SHROI 02s, ACPY, and the UR grandfathered. For eClaims change log number 57, we again modify the population restriction, in this case DN422, part of body injured for fingers, toes, location code. There was a clerical error and we updated 422.064's description to read that the location code must be null unless DN36, part of body injured code, is 36 fingers other than thumb and or 57 toes. For eClaims change log number 58, we modified a population restriction and a DN error message. This was for DN434, number of cancel elements. There's an additional population restriction for number of cancel elements, and that error 044. If not the 01 cancel, then number of cancel elements must be 0, and the 05 error there, if the 01, then number of cancel elements must not be 0. We also added L to errors 044 and 045 for DN434, number of cancel elements, to the DN error message table. For eClaims change log number 59, we changed the SHROI sequencing for the SHROI IP. We changed the SHROI sequencing table to reject an IP after the SHROI AC. Again, that's to actually reject the IP after the SHROI AC has been filed, since that's considered a suspension. eClaims change log number 60. We updated the SHROI sequencing table for the SHROI SU for the sync up. We updated the sequencing edits for the SHROI SU in edit number 3 to read that the SHROI SU will only be accepted upon request and approval of eClaims at wcb.ny.gov. If the request is not approved, then an incoming SHROI SU will be rejected for edit 63, invalid event sequence, with DN 291 element error text stating SHROI SU needs to be pre-approved first, see edit number 3. Aside from 402, if any other new MTCs are filed against the claim before a sync-up transaction is successfully filed, the transaction will be rejected with error code edit 063, invalid event sequence with DN 291 element error text stating pre-approved SHROI sync-up has not been accepted yet. And third, if a SHROI sync-up transaction is filed against that claim after the sync-up submission time window has elapsed, the transaction will be rejected with error code edit 063, invalid event sequence with DN 291 error text stating SHROI sync-up is too late, need pre-approval again. A couple important notes here. One is at any point during the sync-up time window, the sync-up approval can be rescinded by request. Additionally, an extension to the time window can also be requested. And again, keep in mind that these need to be pre-approved for the sync-up. You cannot just file that. You need to have pre-approval from the eClaims work group as well.
Mike, you have one question concerning the change to reject SHROI IP after the SHROI AC. SHROI AP would still be allowed, correct?
Yes. I also wanted to go over the last webinar. We had some questions about dates on when we would start turning off 3.0 as we convert to 3.1. Since then, we've gotten some of those dates firmed up. So we added a new section, or will be adding a new section to the implementation guide. It will be published shortly, as Mary Beth mentioned earlier. So section 3.81 will state that flat file submissions will be accepted until 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, March 11, 2021. Web data entry will be available until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, March 12, 2021. A couple other important things that we know folks use a lot. eCase will also be available until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, March 12, 2021. Further information will be shared as it's available if any other online systems are going to be impacted by the 3.0 to 3.1 cutover. So again, we will continue to keep everyone posted on additional impacts, as well as we will remind everyone as we get closer to those dates. And with that, I will turn it over to Patty to wrap things up.
Before we conclude today's presentation, I want to make sure you are aware of the methods to stay informed on eClaims news and upcoming engagement opportunities. You can visit the eClaims website at wcb.ny.gov to stay up to date on eClaims news. You can also sign up to receive news straight to your inbox. This is how we will be communicating future engagement opportunities throughout the course of the BIS project. Visit the eClaims site and select WCB notifications within the eClaims overview section. Questions, comments, and feedback on the eClaims EDI 3.1 upgrade can be emailed to eclaims31@wcb.ny.gov. Questions regarding existing eClaims EDI 3.1 should continue to be sent to the eClaims mailbox. at eClaims@wcb.ny.gov. You can also follow the board on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. A recording of this webinar is going to be placed on our YouTube and eClaims website, as well as FAQs spawned from the questions being asked during this webinar series. So keep an eye out for these resources, as well as a follow-up email and survey. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time today.